This is my first time owning and playing a Tekken game with the exception of one arcade cabinet from my local pizza spot way back in the day. And as I am what is basically a newcomer to this franchise, I have to admit this is one of, if not the most complete fighting game I have ever played, and it's awesome. Tekken 8 has an incredible amount of content to take part in. Seriously, Street Fighter 6's amount of content is nothing compared to Tekken 8. Let's start with all the offline modes we get to take part in. We have a cinematic story mode similar to Mortal Kombat and Injustice, and in here, it feels simultaneously strong and weak. There are some really cool chapters and moments in the story. For example, one chapter where you play as the Masked Wrestler King and your allies are chanting your name during a really massive battle. But then you also feel that the story kind of felt rushed while also trying to drag it on a bit longer because the story will take you around 4 hours to finish. And they had this whole point about the new tournament being made to determine the fate of the universe, of the world.
The King of Iron Fist Tournament の開催を宣言する。強き者はトーナメントに集え。己の拳で栄光を勝ち取るがいい。ただし、力を示せぬ弱者は国ごと消えてもらうことになる。さあ、全人類よ、世界を。
But it's a very small part of the story, and it did go into weird places, and I was mostly lost at what was going on in the story because of how quickly it bounces around from moment to moment, scene to scene, and it kind of felt like it was poorly put together in my opinion. And apparently all the characters of the roster are multilingual because each character will only speak in their native language, and apparently all characters can understand each other despite the various different languages that they speak.
Adesso è sigillato nella tua mano sinistra.
However, we are still in danger of annihilation.
The game also has some of the most amazing visuals and character models I have seen in recent fighting games, and you will see a lot of it during this story mode. There's also this secondary story mode called Character Episodes, which consists of 5 fights per each of the characters on the roster that tells a little bit of a story for each of these characters, and I don't think that they are all really important to the overall lore of Tekken, but it is nice that they gave this to us. It's something really small and interesting to take part in. There's also an arcade quest mode where you create a custom avatar and you explore various arcades with the story that is essentially acting as a giant tutorial mode, which is good because characters on the roster can have over 100 skills, combos, and techniques to learn. And there is an actual story to this arcade quest mode. I don't think the story will be as deep as the actual cinematic story, but it is additional content for you to put hours and hours of time into, and that's really amazing. Now I will talk more about combat and customization in a little bit. Arcade mode is your classic ladder mode that consists of 8 fights per character that unfortunately doesn't have any story content, no character ending per each character upon completion of this ladder mode. But what is done differently here is rather than battle an opponent from the roster in their default attire, the game will give them customized costumes and outfits to wear during these fights, so it keeps those encounters fresh and interesting rather than something like Mortal Kombat, for example, where you could find yourself fighting the same default Scorpion and Sub-Zero for every single ladder match that you do. Of course, there's also a versus mode where you can battle another player or the CPU. There's practice and Tekken Ball, which was a thing and now it's back. So something that people, I guess, really wanted to return, and it's here and it's kind of fun, honestly. There's also a gallery mode with tons and tons of cutscenes to rewatch, character illustrations that you can unlock with in-game currency. Speaking of in-game currency, I was worried about the cost of microtransactions like various other fighting games we recently received, but no, as far as I can tell, there's no microtransactions, and you can earn this in-game currency just by taking part in the various game modes that's offered here, and it's fairly earned. It's not a grind. You don't have to play endlessly to earn a little bit of currency. You can earn a huge amount of currency just by completing and taking part in various modes, and that's awesome.
You win.
Incroyable combat.
Get ready for the next battle.
Witness the results of my training.
¿Es hora de entrar? Aquí viene el espectáculo de Azucena.
Now, online does have a few modes available as well. There's PS5 tournament mode, which is not yet available to take part in, but I assume would give you the opportunity to take part in an online tournament hosted by PlayStation. Obviously, Tekken Fight Lounge is fairly similar to Street Fighter 6 Battle Hub, but better in my opinion. It's more intuitive and the explorable space is much larger, and just like Street Fighter 6, you are able to play a practice battle while you wait for an online opponent, which is pretty interesting that they included this mode similar to Street Fighter 6. The game also offers crossplay, which is a massive bonus. And of course, you also have your standard rank match, quick match, player match. The first time that you try an online match, the game will have you fight a AI opponent, and it will be used to test your current fighting skill, and the game will try to match you with online opponents of a similar skill set compared to yours. You can also download a ghost copy of any of your online opponents that you faced so that you can practice against these ghosts at a later time. These ghost fighters will basically fight in the same style as the opponents actually fought when you had the online battle, and you can use this tool as a good way to practice so you can learn from your mistakes and find out how you could be a better fighter and how you can get around some of the mistakes that you've made, as well as how to get around some of the incredible moves that your opponent has used against you. This ghost copy might be tied to an offline mode called Super Ghost Battle, which I have not unlocked yet, so I will have to check that out as soon as I unlock it by completing more quests in the arcade quest mode. Now, before I talk about combat, I want to briefly talk about customization, because first, you are able to make a custom avatar for some of these modes, such as the arcade quest and Tekken Fight Lounge, but the avatar customization sucks, like really sucks. However, you can completely customize the roster characters. You can completely change their hairstyles and the color of their hair. You can change their entire outfits. You can add an aura that will surround the character during fight. You can add a hit effect that will basically show up each time you attack your opponent. You can change the photo that is used for the versus screen. And I'm having a lot of fun just in the customization menu, just spending hours and hours customizing characters, giving them various different outfits and attires to wear. There's also a jukebox that has the soundtrack music for pretty much every Tekken game from the first one up until Tekken 8. Wow, like that's a lot of music to go through. Now, when it comes to the fighting in this game, the fighting is amazing. And this is coming from a guy whose favorite fighting game franchise is Street Fighter. The game emphasizes an aggressive fighting style. You can defeat an opponent in a matter of seconds if you're very aggressive. And defense is of course just as important. Since this is a 3D fighting game, you don't only have block as your method of defense, you can also sidestep to dodge your opponent's attacks. And you're going to want to use a mix of block and dodge if you want to play defensively, but be careful because once you're stuck in an enemy combo, it could be hard to escape and that could just be the end of your fight. But getting that perfectly timed dodge or even winning a power clash when your opponent tries to use their power at the same time, it feels truly amazing. And some of the stages do have transitions, something I have not seen in a fighting game in some time. Stages will also take damage as you and your opponent beat the crap out of each other, and you have various walls you can knock your opponent through, you can destroy barriers, the ground will get destroyed as you continue to fight. It kind of feels like the stages is part of the fight and not just a pretty environment to look at during combat. And similar to Street Fighter 6, there is a beginner mode controller scheme called Special Style in Tekken 8, which basically allows you to pull off various combos and special moves much easier, which is meant for those who are not experienced with the Tekken fighting style. But the difference and as well the improvement, in my opinion, compared to Street Fighter 6's mode is you don't have to jump to a menu screen to enable or disable this easy, beginner special style mode. All you have to do is press L1 during combat and it will change in real time, which means your fighting style will instantly change without having to exit the fight, go through any menus. And in the age of SSDs and these powerful consoles, it's about damn time a game utilizes such a great feature such as this and implemented so perfectly. Each character does have what's called a rage art, which is basically a really strong combo, and they also have what's called a heat burst, which is basically a character special attack. Very hard to block, but if you do end up missing, you better have a backup plan because once you miss that special, you're pretty much locked out of using it again until the next round.
¡Vamos a divertirnos! ¡Por aquí! ¿Tienes café?
And as I mentioned earlier, with a right combo and a right playstyle, you could utterly destroy your opponent in a matter of seconds. I also heard the argument that this game's roster is small compared to how many characters exist within the Tekken franchise, but this game launched with 32 fighters on the roster. That's more than I've seen in most recent fighting games at launch, and there's a few more on the way with DLC. So if anyone out there really thinks that this roster is small, they deserve to be thrown off a cliff. And a little bonus as well, there's 2 stages that's basically this universe's version of Times Square from New York City, and as a lifelong New Yorker, someone who was born and raised in New York City, that adds bonus points for me as well because it's really cool to fight in Times Square. There is so much content in this game that it makes a very easy recommendation for you to buy this game, whether you're a Tekken fan, a fan of fighting games, or if you're a newcomer to the franchise like I am. Tekken 8 is showing the fighting game community who is the current king of fighting games, and I'm excited to keep on playing to see what else I can discover as well as master multiple characters on the roster. And that's my review of Tekken 8. So let me know in the comments what you think about the Tekken franchise. Are you a fan? Are you a newcomer like I am? Are you ready to step into the ring and see who is truly the master of the Iron Fist tournament? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.
You win.
Crearé el café perfecto para ti.